That is nothing but a bunch of tea-bagging rednecks. And there is no way around that. I think the conservative movement has now crystallized into the white power movement. It's about hating a black man in the White House. This is racism straight up. That is nothing but a bunch of tea-bagging rednecks. And there is no way around that. I didn't know there were so many racists left. I didn't know that. Because as I said, the Republican hyphen, the conservative movement has now crystallized into the white power movement.
The way I see it here, these have nothing to do with the Democratic Party other than the Democrats suck. However, no more than the Republicans suck. This has nothing to do with how much Barack Obama is spending. It's about how much Barack Obama and George W. Bush and both Congresses have been spending for years.
I figured that...
No, go ahead.
I figured the cameras were off already, so I could just say whatever I wanted, and I did.
Janeane Garofalo was on TV the other night, and she said that the people at these tea parties, they only hate, they're only racist. So I guess, Kathy, the logical question for you is, why do you hate black people so much?
Oh my God, I can't
No, seriously, because that would be the only possible reason. You did that Fed thing, but that's crazy town.
Do we really care what Janeane Garofalo says? Do we really give her much credibility? I don't.
She's from Hollywood.
I liked her movie.
Yes.
I liked her movie about the dogs and the cats. I thought she was great in that movie, but Janeane Garofalo, she was in a format on MSNBC that's what they do. That's what they do.
Be smart.
The only racism that I see is racism against black conservatives. That's where I see race, and it's coming from the left. So,
well, I'm sure there's an awful lot of evidence. You know, just talk to any African American that is a conservative, and they'll, reams of evidence of that. But let's not talk about that. Those views were echoed by Planned Parenthood founder Marget Sanger. She was a eugenist who was hailed last month by our own Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton.
I admire Marget Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision. I am really in awe of her.
Okay. Not only did Hillary Clinton say that, listen how she compared Sanger to one of our founding fathers last week.
I admire Thomas Jefferson. I admire his words and his leadership, and I deplore his unrepentant slaveholding. I admire Marget Sanger being a pioneer in trying to empower women to have some control over their bodies, and I deplore statements that you have referenced. That is the way we often are when we look at flawed human beings. There are things that we admire and things we deplore.
Angela Franks is the author of Marget Sanger's Eugenic Legacy, the control of female fertility. Angela, Thomas Jefferson was a man in great conflict. He is not one of my favorite founding fathers because he was divided in himself. He was in great turmoil within himself. Was Marget Sanger in that kind of turmoil? It seems to me that she was pretty much consistent.
That's correct. Jefferson, you can argue, Jefferson didn't devote his life towards promoting slavery. Marget Sanger did devote her life to promoting eugenics, and so the analogy is not very appropriate.
Okay, eugenics, by the way, is what ended up as the Holocaust. It was making the perfect race. It was getting rid of people. In fact, the progressives in the 1900s, they went into prisons and they wanted to I think it was in Indiana, where they were getting rid of some of the prison population, because if we can off them, then they won't reproduce, and then we'll have the master race. We also have Marget Sanger. Can we put the picture of Marget Sanger up here? This is Marget Sanger at a Klan rally, which a lot of the early progressives were Klan members. I mean, Woodrow Wilson was one of the most racist men to ever be in the White House, and he's a progressive hero. Did all of these things, did she ever disavow them? Did she ever walk away and say, boy, that whole Holocaust thing, that was a mistake?
Well, I think you can argue that Sanger herself didn't hold anti-Semitic attitudes. Her first husband was Jewish, for example. But she promoted a thought world. She promoted an ideology that leads to things like the Holocaust. She divided the world up into the fit and the unfit.
Right. Wasn't Planned Parenthood part of the idea was to get rid of some of the poor babies, get rid of some of the black babies?
The poor have always been the target of eugenicists, from Sanger to Hitler to everybody.
But not African Americans.
Well, Sanger herself didn't say that blacks per se were unfit, but what you see is you can have a racist effect even if you don't have a racist intent, and that's what you see with somebody like Sanger. So she's promoting, implying that if you're poor, you're unfit, and that you need to use birth control, and she's saying that the problems of the world are caused by poor people having babies. And